When I started cross stitching, I used exclusively kits. And then I got scared away from kits and started avoiding them like the plague. And if you watch my channel these days, you'll know that I am back to stitching a whole lot of things from kits. Let me tell you why. I'm Michelle, this is my romantic tangle, and let's talk about how I fell in love with kits, fell out of love with kits, and embraced them again later. I started cross stitching in 2001 after my oldest son was born. A bunch of the gals in the call center I worked in were doing needlework because it was the night shift. We had lots of time that nothing was happening. And after 7 years of reading books all night, every night, I wanted to do something different. You can only read so many books. It's true. So I got a cross stitch kit. And that was the time when Michaels had like 2 aisles full of cross stitch kits. There were tons of full coverage landscapes and houses. And it was what I wanted to stitch. And it was out there and there was a lot of it. And then a big craft store near us went out of business. And I can't remember if the discount was 75% off or higher than that. I think they hit 90% off. And I bought every kit my pocketbook could afford. My pocketbook couldn't afford very many kits in those days. And I loved it. I was happy stitching from kits. And then, I don't know if it was an idea that wormed its way into my own head or if somebody else put it there, but I got scared. Fear number one, which I am sure, come about all on my own, was I was afraid I was going to mess up the colors. Back in 2001, when you bought a kit, this was how your floss was likely to come. There were going to be a whole bunch of strands of floss that you got to figure out which was what. So you would have light orange, orange gold, light blue, royal blue, navy blue, dark royal blue. I was afraid that I was going to get the colors wrong. The world was going to end if I got the colors wrong. If you're curious, this is the Titanic, and I think it might be from that craft store that went out of business. It's been a while, I can't remember. My other huge fear was, what if I ran out of floss? It was more getting the colors wrong. But what if I ran out of floss? What was I going to do? Obviously, the floor was going to open up and swallow me if one of these terrible things happened. And it happened that my very favoriteest designer in the whole world at that point, Marty Bell, her stuff came in pamphlets and it came in kits. So if I bought the pamphlet, I could buy skeins at DMC. They would have numbers on them that told me 100% I had the right color. And if I was wasteful and threw extra floss around the room, I could buy more of it. So I stopped stitching from kits and I started stitching from patterns. And it worked. I had a bunch of kits that I was probably never going to get to at that point, but it worked. And then years passed. I ate, breathed, and slept cross stitch for a few years, and then I had my youngest two 15 months apart. At about the time I started going into preterm labor with Quinn, it became pretty obvious that whatever position I sat in to cross stitch, it triggered contractions, and so I put it away for a long time. And then I went to the thrift store one day, and I don't know what was going on. It was before I found Floss Tube. I found a cross stitch kit of a cat coming out of a pumpkin for 50 cents, and I went, I want to do that. I'd been quilting, I'd been knitting, I had been doing tons of things that were not cross stitch. And I had started the Never Ending Vintage block embroidery quilt. But I went, I want to cross stitch again. I could spend 50 cents for a kit. Nothing can go wrong with a 50-cent kit, and I got it, and I stitched it, and I went up in my sewing room, and I went looking for the cross-stitch kits that I had boxed up 15 years earlier. Because when you have a kit, Everything is here in this package. I've got a needle, I've got fabric, I've got floss, I've got a pattern. I don't have to pull things together. And new kits have floss organizers. At least most of the ones I have bought in recent years have. So the idea that I could get the color wrong, there are numbers on them. I've got a DMC color card. If I run out, I can find a conversion chart and I can add more floss to this thing. The only times I have run out have been because I made an obvious mistake that I can trace it back to. Not saying it doesn't happen. Two of the gals doing the Blue Jays Sal have run out of 9 and 10, and I'm going to be extra careful and see what happens to me. But I like kits because everything is here. You know what the project is going to cost. When I was doing big full coverage stuff where I was buying a leaflet and buying the Aida and buying the 100 and however many skeins of DMC, I never took the time to figure out what the cost of materials for those projects were because I didn't want to know. So I don't have to sort the floss anymore to get the right color unless I get a good deal on a kit at the thrift store, in which case I will sort floss. I have figured out how to do a much better job of it than when I was spreading things out on our poorly lit living room floor and making wild, desperate guesses. I've got a link that tells you how I do that, and I'll put it in the description below. But I know that I got one of the colors swapped in I Love Stitching because I did it a couple years ago. It was one of the kits from that clearance sale. And I mixed up taupe with some shade of brown, and you know what? It looks fine. You can't tell. Somebody who had done this exact piece maybe could compare mine and theirs and figure it out, but I can't tell. The floor didn't swallow me up. Ripe Apples is one of the only Riolas kits I've bought that I had to sort floss for. It's also very wrinkled right now. And I think it was older packaging of this design. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that I didn't get one of the greens right, that I swapped two greens. And again, I ran really low on one of the greens, which is why I think I made the mistake, or what tipped me off that there might be a mistake. It's pretty. You can't tell. The floor didn't open up. So all of the fears I had over kits for so many years turned out to be really nothing. I have heard people say that kits are lower quality. I do a lot of thrifted kits. I'm working with kits that are older than I am. And yeah, sometimes I will look at the floss and go, this isn't as nice as DMC would be, but it's perfectly serviceable. And sometimes I'll look at the floss and go, ew, I don't like this. But in general, I am too cheap to swap out brand new floss and fabric on a kit that I paid good money for, even if that good money was $1.50 at the thrift store. So these days, I love kits. I have got more kits than I probably will ever stitch because I keep adding to the collection, and I like that I can pick this up and everything is here. And kits, especially the older ones, tend to come in designs that appeal to me. I know not everybody is as gaga over houses and landscapes as I am, but there are designs out there. Whether you're doing kits or charts or whatever, we can all find something that we will go get smitten with and love to stitch. So we don't need to pick on anybody else's choices. That's my story about the kits. I would say that I wish I hadn't turned my back on them for so long, but it didn't hurt anything. They're still here. I am almost positive that of the stuff that I boxed up 15 years ago, there's another box of kits, because I know a couple that I'm absolutely 100% positive that I owned that are no longer in my stash and I have not been able to find. Other than that, I have got a treasure trove of stuff to play with. So turning my back on them didn't hurt anything, and I have kits. I have a master set of DMC. I've got charts coming out of my ears, and I am a happy stitcher. Do you stitch with kits? Do you dislike kits? If you do dislike kits, is it because of your own personal experience or because of what other people have told you to dislike about kits? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm Michelle, this is my romantic tangle, and I'll be back with you with more videos soon.